Hello and welcome. During the first video, we explored some of the challenges and tips and techniques for those working remotely or at home for the first time. Today, what I'd like to focus on is some tips and techniques and challenges for those who are now responsible for managing and leading remotely. There are a number of areas I'd like to cover, but I'd like to start with quite simply setting the tone. I do believe it's a leader's responsibility to set the tone in times that are uncertain. There's no doubt we're all going through and have been through massive change in the last couple of weeks. But we also recognise that people do go through and have certain emotions when they're faced with change. Those of us who've done change workshops will recognise the classics of confusion, denial, resistance, acceptance, etc. With this in mind, it's worth recognising, of course, that we all have our own individual circumstances in terms of our workspace, our work office, of course, those who are responsible now for homeschooling their children, and those who have younger children who require their time and attention. With this in mind, in terms of a leadership style, particularly now, one size does certainly not fit all. I've never thought it does, but particularly important in these times of change. So one of the things I'd like to consider and kind of look at is one of your key skills as a leader is that demonstration of empathy. We talk a lot about empathy on the courses that I run, but what does it mean? People often talk about putting yourself in each other's shoes, etc., etc. And whilst I agree with that, for me, empathy boils down to one particular thing. Just demonstrating that as a leader that you get it, that you understand some of the challenges that people are going through, that you understand that people will need to work different and they will work through some of those challenges at their own pace. You also, therefore, as a leader, need to demonstrate that you're there to support, understand, and not be judgmental of some of the challenges that they're going through, but you will provide the support that they need to get through this particular time and beyond. The second area I'd like to explore is clarity. I've already mentioned these are uncertain times and lots of changes going on around us. So as a leader, try and provide as much clarity as you possibly can. I appreciate it's not always easy, but that may be in terms of organisational structure, roles and responsibilities, but also for individual team members, thinking about what priorities lie ahead. Inevitably, we might have some immediate priorities in terms of the organisation itself. However, let's not forget that we will come out of these very strange times. We might not know exactly what business as usual looks like. It might be quite different than what it was before. But also you need to think about your priorities not just now, but for the next few months in terms of building that resilience and that capacity within the organisation, within teams and individuals, for that when we do get some semblance of normality, that we're ready to face it, we're ready to tackle it. By focusing too much on immediate priorities, there is a danger that we sort of take our eye off the ball in terms of some of the medium or long-term things. So whilst it's easy to focus on those particular things, and it's right that we do so in very certain areas, just keep an eye on the horizon, keep an eye on what's coming, so that actually we are in a good position to focus and face that when the time comes. The third area I'd like to touch on is communication. Look, we know how important communication is in any organisation, in any company. And indeed, we did touch upon communication in the last video. But again, what I'd like us to consider as the manager, as the leader, it is our responsibility to set the scene, to set expectations, to set the tone of what communication looks and sounds like. Two areas, of course, to consider are team communication and individual communication. In terms of team communication, getting the team together virtually on a regular basis also gives you the opportunity to be visible. Again, very important at these particular times. So again, what are we going to discuss and talk about at our team meetings? We mentioned in the last session or the last section that it was very much about priorities, but also see this as an opportunity to get the team together. To spend some time not just talking about what we've got on, but how we're feeling, what we're doing, some of the challenges that we're facing. So it gives people that sense of belonging and purpose in terms of the team. In terms of individual communication, I will touch upon this in a little bit more detail in the next section, which is actually talking about sort of dealing with individuals as individuals. We've kind of already mentioned it's really important to provide the correct amount of support that each individual needs. So think about how we agree when and how we're going to check in, what tools we're going to use, so that regular contact is made and so that we can still be visible to all our team members, both team and individual. The last area I'd like to look at, although it could be considered as an overarching strategy, is to treat every individual as an individual. We've already mentioned that different individuals within your team will have different circumstances and different challenges. So it's important to sit down with those people and discuss and work out what works best for them. For example, if you have someone in your team who does have homeschooling responsibilities or childcare responsibilities, of course, things like work patterns might be worth looking at, see when works best for them. Also, if you think about it, traditionally home workers tend to be self-sufficient, self-reliant and able to get on with things. At this moment in time, that might not necessarily be the case. Maybe a newer member in the team, maybe a new member in the organisation does traditionally or would traditionally need a bit more support. But now they found themselves working remotely at home. So again, to work out between you what that support looks like, how often we need to check in, what those check-ins look like. Because of course what we did say in the first video is that home workers, when they first start to work at home, can sometimes feel a little guilty if they're not at their desk or they're not at their computer all the time, or that they miss a call or an email from the boss. What this means for you as a manager also, we are traditionally used to managing inputs in terms of timekeeping, amount of time at work, when they're in the office, what they're doing. What this demands of us is to actually measure outputs and be realistic in what can be achieved, bearing in mind the circumstances people find themselves in. By adopting this approach with your team members, not only will you get the best out of them for the coming weeks, hopefully you'll get the best out of them in the longer term as well. So that's it, folks. Hopefully it's given you some food for thought, some tips, techniques and ideas and approaches to get the most out of managing your team remotely. Whilst I appreciate in a few minutes I only really just scratched the surface, so if you do want any further information, please do feel free to get in touch. But all remains for me to say is stay well, stay healthy, and it's goodbye from me and goodbye from him.